This is Fred Adler recording on this October 12th, beautiful autumn day, 2016, and I have as my guest Tony, Teo. Which Ariola? Which do you prefer?
I go by either. I like them both.
Yeah, is Teo more your show business name?
Teo is more my show name.
Yeah, and I'm going to raise your mic a little bit. Yeah, Teo, thanks for coming.
Sure, my pleasure.
You and I talked. Again, we're on say the date again, October 12th, 2016, and we're going to talk about a number of things, your theater, your experience, just kind of a biography of who you are and get to know you a bit beyond where we already do. You moved up here with Pete in 2002, you said?
Yeah, we bought our house in 2002.
Yeah, and you and I discussed last week when I called you about this interview as to whether or not you were comfortable doing it, which would certainly involve discussing your loss that everybody knows about with your mate,
Yes.
Pete. And tell me, and we won't go into it in depth yet, we'll talk about other matters, but just briefly, just give us a synopsis when it occurred, and just the surface aspects of it.
Well, it occurred on July 3rd. It was Sunday, and we were at the Art Center preparing and working on the La Cage aux Folles production that was going to be opening soon, and working on setting the house up in terms of like design, setting it up and clearing the stage and doing all that stuff. So it was a pretty busy weekend in general, because we were putting up the scrims that needed to go up, and so there was a lot of work.
And let me just insert before you go on, Teo Ariola. Teo's my guest. That what I also didn't finish quite in my own before I asked you something. Say that you and I had discussed whether you were comfortable doing this interview, and we came to the decision that we would record it and then see how comfortable you were about airing it.
Yeah.
And also that you and I just talked a long time before we started to record, and you seem to be quite willing and comfortable to discuss your loss. And so I want to give that as a preface to the audience that this has been discussed.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah, and so there wasn't a lot that we were doing that was strenuous. I was, stapling up fabric to cover up, we were hiding some of the flats that were platforms that we had put down on the floor. And so, Pete was basically just kind of watching and helping me, holding the fabric here and there and everything. And he just, he went to go throw some empty cans away, and he didn't come back, and someone came in, said someone fell by the dumpster and needs some help, and I ran out, and he had collapsed. So,
okay. And was never able to be revived. So
yeah.
You said you had taken CPR, but it was to no avail.
I mean, I performed CPR immediately, and eventually some help came, not too much long afterwards. Some folks that were coming
from RCMS?
No, they were showing up at the Art Center to look at the art and saw what was going on, and it was two ladies, and one happened to be a nurse and the other happened to be a doctor, and so between the three of us, we did our best, and we got the AED from Malala Arch, which is great that they actually have that there.
What is that?
The AED is you hook it up and you get electrical shock.
Oh, they have
help.
that.
Yeah, so they have one of those there, and so they went and got that, and we did that, and we pretty much kept going until the EMTs arrived.
Yeah. Now, the reason that I have asked the question, and we will go away from this and then come back, but I want to, since we're here, Teo, talk about you and your theater, and then we'll come back to your loss. And is that there are different opinions about that I've run into about talking about specifics of loss. I mean, not just loss, but specifics of what happened when somebody dies, passes on is my preferred expression. What is yours?
Passes on,
Passes
pass away.
on. Okay,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about
Yeah.
what your beliefs are in relation to where they go, and we'll share a little of that. And I know that Christian Science has told me, and I'm not Christian Science, nor are you, nor you, but I've spoken to Christian Science people, and that they don't even discuss what happened to a person specifically when they pass on. The details of the incident are not part of their discussion, because they believe that the soul passes into another part of life, and that the person isn't really gone, but we just don't see them anymore. Whatever the physical has gone, but not the human, not the soul, not the essence. And I pretty well believe that too.
Right.
But to me, for me, it's very important to find out, rather than just what happened. Rather than, I mean, if I were to go disappear tomorrow, and you said to, or you found out, Teo, and you said Fred Adler is gone. You mean he moved away? What happened?
Right.
No, I don't mean he moved away. He's gone. He's dead, or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And they'd say, what happened? That would be the instinctive reaction. I bet 9 out of 10. What happened?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. And so if you say, well, there's no reason to discuss that. He's gone. It doesn't matter. That leaves so much to the imagination,
Right.
and little healing or ability to have a catharsis in relation to making it real.
Right.
And that's why I ask you what happened.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your telling us.
Yeah, and so that, I think, it basically, he had a massive heart attack.
Okay.
And so, and just never became conscious again.
Okay. Now we're 3 months away. I still, I'll feel when it's time to move away and then come back,
Sure.
but I'm not yet, because we're right here. What are you experiencing now in relation to your loss, and people's reaction to you, and what you would hope, or what's right for you? What is right for you, and how terrible is your loss right now? What are you going through?
Well,
3 months later.
Yeah, it's still terrible. It's it's definitely bearable. I think I'm able to to deal with everyday life a little bit easier. It gets easier as time goes on, but that doesn't mean that you're not still missing that person, or you're missing the company. It just means that you're able to I'm able to function and to to work and get things done, and to also enjoy myself as well too.
It could be getting worse. You say time is because only 3 months isn't very. It
Yeah.
could get worse and then get better.
It could.
There's an arc,
It's like a roller coaster. There's definitely good days, and there's definitely bad days where you just can't get out of feeling sad or feeling depressed or or angry.
Tell me about that.
Angry. I'm just angry that that the person isn't here anymore, and you're dealing with you deal with whatever you deal with in everyday life, and people complain about something happening or whatever, and it's like some things to myself it just feels like, oh God, this is just so unimportant in the big picture, because after losing someone I mean that's a lot of
such as
stuff.
what? Can you give a little example?
Oh, just I don't know. I mean, just people complaining about, someone's, for instance, like at work or something. Someone complains about somebody's. They have an umbrella that's too bright and it's ruining the neighborhood. And I mean, things that seem so unimportant to life. In general.
And so a perspective is gained from a great loss of what's important, or
right. So things that may have upset me in the past, or upset it just seems like it's petty, and just you just kind of need to let it go. And I think people should do that, and especially when it comes to people that are friends, who may have differences, or even family members who don't speak because of whatever, but, I really feel that, because life is so unpredictable and so short, is that we should really try to be kind to people, be kind to one another, and let bygones be bygones.
You would have said this before Pete passed on, wouldn't you?
I would, but maybe I didn't feel it as strongly.
Okay.
So
Truly.
yeah. So I just feel that because you never know from one day to the next whether you're going to be here one moment to the next, and to have any regrets that, oh God, that person was my friend, or that was my brother. I wish I would have talked to him a little bit more, or whatever whatever it is in people's lives.
Do you have moments, or even in the middle of the night, that when you wake up, that you start to think, what could I have done, or that
Oh yeah, I mean, I think people go through that all the time. I mean, I've talked to some other people that have had losses, and they think to themselves, when you have that solitude, your mind starts wandering and thinking, oh well, maybe was I doing too much with the show? Did I have him doing too many things? Was he working too hard, or were we not eating properly? I mean, there's all these things. So what if I did this? What if I did that? But you have to get out of your head when you do that, because it doesn't change anything. It won't make it better. The only thing it does is it makes it worse for yourself, because you start, I think it's just the natural reaction for people to want to try to blame themselves for something, or even
it's
to find more of
it's an instinct.
It's an instinct. It's definitely an instinct,
I'm talking to Teo Ariola. So how do you get away from that?
You just have to force yourself not to think like that. You have to tell yourself, okay, I'm not going there. I'm not doing that.
That's what you do.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Do you change the subject in your mind?
I do.
I mean, not to say I can't think about it. In order for me to stop thinking about what I'm thinking about that I shouldn't be thinking about,
right, you have to think of something.
I have to push into another subject.
Yeah, you definitely do.
Do you have any things you lean on? Any subjects?
Oh, I usually end up thinking about a show.
A
or
show
something
that you've seen, or a show you've
been on,
or
start thinking about theater, or it'll be like, oh, maybe I want to do a show, maybe this would be something like that, something creative, or it could be or I'll turn on the TV and put on an old movie or something, or go to the
even at 2 a.m.
even at 2 a.m, so your brain will stop. You have to divert that thought somehow, and so in order to do that, you have to definitely try to think of something else. You try to think of something happy.
Have you gone through losses before, not as profound, because Pete was your mate for how many years?
32.
And you were almost virtually together all the time, and very devoted to each other. Have you gone through other losses of parents or siblings or whatever?
Well, yeah. I experienced my first loss when I was 6. That was when my mother passed, and I don't think I really understood it at that time. I don't, I mean, I knew she was gone, but it didn't really, I don't know. I didn't process it until I think much later, and then my father passed away when I was 13, and so I lost both parents, and those were the only, I think, in my family, the only close losses that I experienced.
Yeah, but only, my goodness.
I mean,
it's pretty huge.
Yeah,
very huge. 6 years old and 13 years old, mother and then father.
Yeah.
You've been through it.
Yeah, and I think that, not having my parents, and it forced myself, I think, to grow up fast and to take care of myself.
Who raised you?
Well,
Teo
pretty
Ariola.
much. I mean, I pretty much would say that I've raised myself with the help of some of my sisters. Because after my father passed, I pretty much lived with my. I lived from sister to sister this is in Vallejo, where I grew up. I had a sister that lived in Vallejo. I lived with her for a while, and then I lived in Daly City for a while with my other sister's family. She was getting married, and she lived with them, and then eventually, what happened was I ended up becoming a ward of the court because I was underage.
How old were you?
At the time, I believe I was 15, 16, and I became a ward of the court. And my eldest sister, Tina, became my guardian, and so I officially then lived with her, and until I moved out. And went on
you were
my
15.
own.
She was.
She was like 6 years older than.
Okay, 21.
Yeah, so yeah.
Yes, and are you close to her now?
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
Do you seek solace now from her or from your family?
Oh, definitely. We're, family's been, very important. Not the entire, all of my family, because they're not as close location-wise. Like my sister Tina lives in Vallejo, so she's fairly close, and
you talk on the phone.
We talk on the phone, and and we've even after Pete and I were together, she's like lived with us before, and her daughter, my niece, and so I'm very close to her as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Teo Ariola is my guest, and I think talking. You said a minute ago that perhaps there are times when you need to change the subject in your mind, and you might start thinking about theater, and so let's talk about theater for a while, and then we'll go back to talking about your loss and also how you met Pete, and the closeness that you did have, and to share. We're doing this just to share human experience, human loss. We all either have been through it or potentially or fear it or one thing or another. And certainly, speaking of theater, great drama, or whether it's on the stage or movies or in books, is usually about human interaction, human loss, conflict, pain.
Right.
So many great plots, and I admire playwrights so much and authors because they can, whether it's based on truth or whether it's total fiction, can create a whole world that moves you and actually can give you comfort by watching what others go through. And it's an experience when we watch a movie, a great movie or a great piece of literature. Have you've Teo directed how many plays here on the coast?
Well, it's 3, I would say.
It was Fats Waller,
the Ain't Misbehavin', and then the Jekyll and Hyde and La Cage aux Folles.
Okay. Yeah. All 3 very successful in terms of attendance and reception.
Oh,
definitely. And you feel very proud of them, do you?
Yeah, I'm very proud. I thought they were all very well received, and
They were. But how do you feel
amazing.
inside? Sometimes we can have external success, but feel not proud or successful or happy inside.
I'm definitely happy inside with those, especially with La Cage, and especially the ones that I've actually were in as well, like Ain't Misbehavin'. Not only was I directing, I was also in it, as was La Cage aux Folles. And because La Cage aux Folles, the story itself, about a relationship, two gay men who've been together for 20 years, and it just seems so profound with what happened. And I think with that, what happened with Pete's passing, I think the cast even brought it on even a lot more than if that hadn't happened.
Yeah,
just because it was deep. We all felt a real connection with what was with the story and with how the relationships.
Yeah, I mean, it took on that much more from the audience's point of view as well as the cast.
I believe so. Yeah, I think everyone was kind of feeling
the energy of the room would be in a different place.
Yeah, they felt the the anger, the sadness, the happiness. I mean, the whole range of all the emotions. I think because of that, I think it was.
You told me before the play opened that it might be difficult for you because of some of the songs you had to sing. How did that go for you?
Excuse me. It went well. I think
Teo Ariola.
I think the hardest song was the ending song, which was "Song on the Sand," where Georges and Alban go on stage, and Georges sings "Song on the Sand" to Alban early on in the show, and in the ending, it's Alban who's singing it to Georges, and so I was singing it to him.
What was it for those who don't remember or weren't there?
The "Song on the Sand" was basically they're reflecting on when they first met, and they're at the beach, and they think of this song, and so it's about when they first met is what the song is about, and so they been together for 20 years, so the words, it was very poignant, very, very, what was happening now was like, singing to Eric Wilder. We couldn't help feel the emotion of that song.
Yeah.
So it was really kind of difficult.
Teo, you indicated just now by saying your first play here was Ain't Misbehavin', and then it was Jekyll and Hyde, and then La Cage aux Folles. And I have heard, maybe even from you it was, I don't recall, that you had never directed before.
Well, I did one other directing, and that was in San Francisco in 2001. Or actually it was in 2002, because we had just moved up here and we were going back and forth. I had directed Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. That was
so it wasn't true that you hadn't directed.
That was my first directing.
Okay.
And
you directed that where?
It was at the South of Market Cultural Center in San Francisco.
You chose it?
I chose it, and I was doing it as a benefit for a friend of ours that needed a liver transplant, and so it was a fundraiser. It was just one of the events that we put on.
And how many performances?
We did. It was 1 weekend.
Were you pleased with what?
Yeah.
What came?
Yeah, I thought it was. I thought it came out really well.
Why did you choose Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf?
Because I'm crazy. I don't know. I loved the story, and I loved the movie with Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, and I just saw that there were, I don't know, maybe I saw it recently before I decided to do that. It's hard to remember that, but I just remember thinking I knew who I would cast, and so the natural person I cast was my sister Tina, and she, and one of her friends, three other friends of hers, and they were all perfect for the part, and they all happened to be directors. So I was directing directors, which is an interesting thing to do. But it was very.
What Teo, is it? Or maybe you don't even know. But what I'll ask. What is it about your life experience and what schools you went to? I don't know what your education was. You tell us a little bit. That brings you to be what I gather to be an instinctive director, not a studied director. And let me also say that in professionally, directors of movies or directors on Broadway or so are highly revered, and for what they can do, and you've brought to this community really fine theater on a very high level for amateur theater, absolutely, and nobody would argue with that, and so that your talents as a director, if instinctive, are formidable. how does that occur? Do you want to at least discuss that?
Well, I think, I've had no formal theater training in school at all. It was just, school to me was just, your basic, schooling. I didn't, and I didn't go to college or anything. So, I pretty much.
Did you act in any?
Did
you act in it?
Didn't act at all. I think the acting came in as I was growing up early when I was very young. My sister Tina, she is very creative. She's like, has an imagination, and she would, when we would play with our friends and stuff, she would do like wagon train, we'd make a wagon train. She'd find props and stuff in the yard, and we'd pretend like, that we were on. There was a show called Wagon Train or something way back when, and so she would always have something we were doing, always doing something that involved pretending that we were somebody else. And so I think that's where it kind of stemmed from, just naturally.
And you relished that with your sister?
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun, and so I think a lot of the stuff, or a lot of my instinct, comes from just being around her in the theater, because she, not when I lived with her, but afterwards, and we were kind of, we were still close. She was a teacher. She had a performing arts club for children in San Francisco. It was an after-school program she started it was like kindergarten through 5th grade, and so I helped her with that. She did that for several years, and I was pretty much, doing costuming and things like that. But I was there while she was directing and whatnot. So I think I probably learned a lot from her, just from being around it. Just from being around it. And so I think it is instinctive, and I just know what, whether it's right or wrong, I just know what I want to see, and I know, in my head how I want something to come out.
Even in advance of any rehearsals or production.
Mm-hmm. I think the vision is there, and then as you as you're directing and you're in the middle of it, a lot of times it's right there on the spot is what is where you start changing mm-hmm. things and how you want it to be. I think if you have the vision of how you want it, that's where it all starts.
When you got the idea to do Jekyll and Hyde, mm-hmm. What do you recall? I mean, what came up for you? How did that all happen?
Wow, it seems like such a long time ago.
You want to talk about Lakajo Fall, perhaps?
Well, yeah,
in touch with that.
Jekyll and Hyde. I can't really remember right now. I mean, it's probably has a lot to do with
what you've been through.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, how it all came to you and so forth. And so perhaps if you're more in touch with Lakajo Fall.
Yeah, I think I'm more in touch with that right now. I think my brain doesn't go back that far right now.
Okay.
But Lakajo Fall was one of the first movies on that I got Pete on VHS, because it was one of his favorites. He had told me.
Pete.
Yeah. And so it was the subtitled French version, and it wasn't a musical. And so that we had watched that one night and was still debating about doing another play, and then we thought, oh wait, that's a musical. Maybe we could do that. And that was kind of Pete's suggestion as well.
After having done Jekyll and Hyde.
After doing, yes, yeah. Because, the Law of Arts was asking, oh, do you want to direct another musical? And so, wasn't really thinking about it until after watching Lakajo Fall, and then started doing research into the musical. Because I had known some of the music from the musical, but I wasn't real familiar with it, because and I never saw it, and it's not on tape anywhere other than what you can find on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Little bits of the stage play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
not much.
So that was like the beginning of
I've never understood why they don't, in the last few decades, videotape entire plays. Or maybe they do, but they don't put them on YouTube.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
because
think
so
someone.
much is lost.
Yeah, it is lost. I mean, the only reason that I was able to find Ain't Misbehavin' was because I had recorded it years ago. It was a PBS special.
Okay.
So
I remember that. Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
so that was great.
You're very because you're instinctive as a director, Teo Ariola. I hear you being. You're very casual about the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not when you're in production. In rehearsal, perhaps you're more intense, but it's sort of like. And I understand this because I sort of the same way, but I can do this. And,
Right.
And so you don't. Not like you don't talk about it real intensely or in depth or your visions or anything.
No.
You
no.
take it for what it is. I can do
Exactly. Yeah, and it's like I just feel that there is. I've never felt that there is nothing that I can't do. I think people should just do. If they think they want to do something, they should just do it and not worry about it. A lot of people get all freaked out. It's like, oh God, I'm directing. I've never done this before. I can't do that. It's
or whatever it is. Not
or
just
whatever
directing.
it is. It's like I can do this. I know I can do this.
Where does that come from?
I think that comes from. I honestly believe it comes from survival. When I was after both of my parents had died, I think it was a survival instinct. Is that I need to carry on, and actually there may have been another seed that was planted in my head because I did have a stepmother, but we were never close, and one reason why she didn't raise me, but she had said to me one time that she never thought I would amount to anything. And so I think that
you were about how old?
I was 13 after my father died. It was
Okay.
13, 14.
Go ahead.
And so I kind of, that kind of stuck in my head as like wanting to prove it to myself or proving it to her. But, and so it was like a drive.
Yeah. Teo, that could go either way. And it's funny, I was just talking to somebody about that earlier today, is, that whole idea of I never can remember his first name, but the author, Dwyer, had written that book, Your Erroneous Zones, which is things that we don't think we can do, but if we just had a better attitude, whatever, or a thought. But it comes sometimes from being told by a music teacher, you can't carry a tune,
Right.
or
So it can go both
or
ways.
you don't know how to draw,
Yeah.
and you remember it from third grade all your life, so it can go either way.
It can.
You can be defiant and prove yourself, or
Right.
you can shrink.
Yeah, and that's
so
what
maybe,
I chose.
And maybe that's maybe that has to do with just your genes.
Yeah, could be.
Who you are. Maybe different types. There are different personality types who react differently to things.
Yeah, that's true.
So one can't just say, well, going back to what you said earlier a few minutes ago, I think I believe, you said I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe I can do anything. You didn't say that I set my mind to, but that's another way of saying it. And so I think people should just not worry so much. But how do you bypass that if that's not who you are?
Yeah, I think you need somebody to help you, someone who has that kind of drive. If you know somebody, because I have a tendency to want to bring that out in people if I can.
The positive,
the
I
positive
can do.
that you can do this.
Yeah.
And that was, I mean that
As a
came out
director.
of Heidi Calkins, who was in Ain't Misbehavin'. She was the first, when we did Mendonoma Idol, she was the first Mendonoma Idol winner. Never sang in front of, on stage before, and sang Whitney Houston, I Will Always Love You, and it was, she knocked it out of the park, and she overcame her fear of that.
What do you think the process is, or how would you encourage it as a director?
I would encourage that people need to be just very positive about what they're doing, about themselves, and you kind of have to push yourself and not fall back and just give up, which a lot of people I think do, or just say I can't do this, so I'm not going to even try.
When you say about yourself, Teo, I can do anything. You don't mean that literally. You couldn't.
I mean that I
What do
can
you
do
mean
any.
by that?
I can do anything that I put my mind to, or that I have interest into. For instance, I wanted to direct Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and it's like, are you crazy? Well, number one, that's a difficult show to direct, and two, I've never directed before, and you want to do that, and it's like, but it's like I want to do it, and so I feel if there's something that I want to do, I feel that I can do it and do it successfully if I put my mind to it.
Is there anything that you want to do in this state right now? I mean, in the future that you're aware of?
Nothing really. I
Why?
mean, everything, because life as I know as I knew it has all changed in the past 3 months. So I'm still I have to discover who the new Teo or Tony is. So it's really everything's kind of up in the air because it's a new, different life.
Okay, when we come back from a little break, we'll talk about that some more. Thanks, Teo. Teo Ariola. I'm back with Teo Ariola on Coastal Interviews. Teo, before we took the break, you're talking about you have to find out what your life is. How did you say it? Now.
Oh, I have to figure out what my new life is going to be going forward without Pete, because everything has changed, and so I'm just not sure what that brings,
Do you have thoughts, feelings, or is it too soon?
I think it's too soon. I mean, I believe I'm just going to continue what I'm doing with wanting to do shows and
Really?
and whatnot, working and doing whatever. But there's who knows? I mean, because he's not there to he was always there with me, supportive and stuff, and so now not having that, because we were a unit, and so now I feel like I'm half a unit for now. I mean, maybe my feelings will be different in as time goes on, but I think it's just a matter of day by day and trying to figure it out of where I want to go and what I want to do in terms of theater and whatnot. I mean, I'm definitely not thinking of uprooting and going anywhere, because there's really nowhere else to go as far as I'm concerned, because I love this place.
You do. Okay.
I mean,
and so that was going to be my next question. Want to stay geographically in the Wallala area?
Yeah, I mean, Wallala is. Pete and I had several conversations about because we'd see people leave. They're going here, going there, and it's
it
like,
happens.
Yeah, and it's like, God, we were trying to think of some place else we would want to actually live, and of course, you think, oh well, Hawaii would be nice, but you can't really. I mean, unless you what would you do for a living unless you had money and could do that, or own property, or I don't know. But we just couldn't think of what we would do there, and I've known a lot of people who've actually moved to like Hawaii and stuff, and because it was their dream, they wanted to be there, and they end up working like crazy just to survive, and they end up moving back because what was paradise before was just now all work, and they didn't like it as much.
Well, having interviewed Kenny Jowers a few times, Kenny had considered with his partner moving back to I think it's North Carolina, and so when they tried that and found that they wanted to come back here, that had to do with tolerance as well for being gay. You want to talk a little about that, about in relation to this area, or in relation to moving away, or would you rather avoid discussing gay issues in this interview?
No, it doesn't bother me. I mean,
And so, do you feel that this area has been particularly a good area to live in, Northern California in general, and Mendocino County, with a male partner?
Oh yeah, I think I feel totally accepted, and have never felt uncomfortable, even from day one moving here. So I feel that the community in the area has very good tolerance for this culture.
I can't speak for you, but what I observe, not being gay, is I can't imagine any kind of bad feelings that you might experience. If it is, it would be news to me.
Yeah.
If there are.
Yeah. Never experienced that, even from people that you might think might be stereotypical of being macho-y, manly man thing, and having
Yeah.
But no, I not at all.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. So that's and the community in all of what has happened has been amazing, and I definitely want to take the opportunity, being on the air, to say thank you to everyone for all the support that you've shown me and given me.
Now, you told me earlier that before we started to record that you met Pete in San Francisco over
32. Actually, we met 7 years before that. We met. I was only 17 at the time, and I was my sister was my guardian, but I was at that point I had already moved. I had already moved from her house. I mean, she was young too, and she had a boyfriend, and I probably caused issues there. You have your younger brother living there. I mean, it's a natural thing. And I I was at that point I was working, and so I ended up moving out, and at that point I believe that was around when I discovered that that I was gay. And
at about how old?
When I was about 17, 16, 17.
That late, yeah.
And met up with some other I was actually living with a friend. We both worked in San Mateo, and he lived in San Francisco, and so I moved in with him, and we commuted together, and I lived with his family, and his brother was gay, and that was kind of like the first friend I had that was, or someone that I knew that was a friend that was gay, and he had a friend who I met through him, and that was my friend Chris, who was here at the memorial, and we've been friends ever since then. And so we started going out to, at that time, it was like we were going out to the bars, even though I was underage, and that's where I met Pete. And
on Polk Street.
On Polk Street at the In Touch.
At the In Touch.
It was a little dance bar. It had a dance floor that was like the the lighted dance floor, like John Travolta, and so that's where I first met him, and then we hung out for a while, for probably several months, and kind of hung out with friends, and we went separate ways, and we met again on Valentine's Day in 1984, and pretty much we're together every single day, except for probably about 6 days out of our 32 years.
So any stereotypical attitude that people might have about not being loyal or promiscuity does not apply to all at all.
No,
in those days.
Yeah, especially back in those days. I mean, I'm sure. I mean, I've had friends who were just crazy.
Yeah.
But most of those friends are all gone.
Yeah, AIDS took them.
Yeah. And I just some people just aren't that way.
And neither you nor Pete. You and Pete have been very devoted to each other for all these years. And Pete would always say, and you've said it, and I don't know if we said it on this interview, that you were virtually never apart.
Right, and we were a unit. I mean, it was like it was always Pete and Tony, Tony and Pete. It's never been just Pete or Tony.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people had said here when we had our celebration of life too. It was like they always knew us as it was both of us.
Yeah. And so back to loss, and because loss to me is a big issue. First, I want to ask you, what are your beliefs, spiritually or otherwise, metaphysically, about what happens when a person passes on? And some people say a person dies. I used to use the expression die, and the body certainly dies, and some, it's gone. But I don't. I like to say passes on, because I have beliefs, then they can't be proven, that a person passes on to another level or another experience.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. I feel that, that the spirit does go from the body, and that I'd like to believe that it's going somewhere else and is still present and listening and watching. But whether or not, that's what really is, I don't know. And I can only hope that's what it is. I don't know, people say, oh, a lot of people feel that they'll tell you, oh, I still feel him, he's here and that, and I'm not sure I'm like there, like I said.
Yeah, people will say some incredible that touch me, I hear it.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't quite feel that, but I think what helps you is that you hear people say that, and then so you try to feel that as well too. So
what do you mean try?
Well, it's like, oh yeah, I feel that he's here, and
you might be conjure it up.
Yeah. So I mean, so I don't really know.
You've not heard his voice.
No, I mean, I think like we spoke earlier, it's like there's going through this. There's definitely a roller coaster ride where you have highs and lows, and
Go ahead. I'll tell you about the Wallala waves.
I sat there reflecting about, thinking about Pete, thinking about how beautiful it was looking at the waves and looking at Wallala, from there. And the whole reason, that was one of the things that we used to do. We used to walk the bluff trail all the time. And so in sitting there was a point where I literally, in my head, I heard him singing to me, which, Pete he was not a singer. He'd be the first person to tell you that he doesn't perform on stage and he doesn't sing. But he would sing to me. He'd make
privately, he would, in fact.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would sing to me privately. He made up a little song. It was a little song between the two of us, and it was a simple tune that he made up, and it was pretty much the same words, and sometimes he'd change it. And so I kind of heard that, and I heard him singing to me in my head, and that was actually one of the first times I actually really felt that, his presence. I feeling like, people say the spirit, or feeling that he was actually there. And so that was actually, it definitely was uplifting for me.
It was comforting.
It was definitely comforting.
Now you just said that you heard him singing in your head, but are you indicating to us that you believe you truly did hear him sing?
Yeah. I do. I mean, yeah, because, because usually, it's interesting when, when you're alone, because since I've been not alone for such a long time.
Teo Ariola.
You're used to having conversation with someone, so and you're speaking out loud. So now a lot of times when you're in your solitude, it's like all in your head, unless you're going to talk out loud to yourself, which I haven't done, or maybe I do sometimes. But I mean, I heard his voice. I can hear the sound of his voice in my head, and it was very clear. So.
But that was the most palpable experience.
I believe.
And this
so.
was how long ago? Was it?
It's 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and Pete passed on three months ago, and here we are on October.
October 12th.
2016. Yeah. Teo, I had said to you again before we started to record that publicly your demeanor has been extremely upbeat, and I saw you, and even at Jan Harris's memorial. Alone for a little while, and then other people came with you, came next to you, because you have many people who love you here, and or want to just want to be with you, even no matter what, whether Pete was still with us or not. But certainly, if you're seen alone, someone might come more specifically or whatever. But but it isn't just for that reason. That you have a great following of people who love you, and for good reason. But I noticed, and I spent a few seconds with you in the rear there at the Art Center, that your demeanor seemed rather upbeat and rather normal, frankly, but extremely upbeat. Is that a pose or is that real? Let's talk about that ability to publicly at least seem extremely upbeat.
Well, I think it's real because I think being around people lifts the spirit. It lifts my spirit to be around, people. Yes, sometimes, you can still be around people and still, kind of feel depressed and bad and kind of led on to not, where people kind of notice that, oh God, he looks really, depressed. But I find that when I'm with people, it cheers me up. It makes me happy. I feel more comforted when there's people around, because I'm used to always having, like I was used to having Pete around. So having people around me has been really helpful. So it's just the learning to live alone now is the biggest challenge.
The first few weeks after Pete's passing, do you recall them?
Yes.
You want to talk about them?
Yeah, I mean, it was, the first few weeks it was very, I had family here pretty much that evening. Pete's niece came from the Bay Area. And so they, between Pete's niece and my niece, and close friends here like Margaret, Richard Stover, and, some other people, Heidi, who I work with, who's been in my shows, and she had recently lost her father as well too. So I had people there, my sister, So the first 2 weeks, I think they pretty much made sure that I wasn't alone or that I was okay, and so it definitely made it a lot easier. It wasn't until, I think, pretty much until after the celebration of life, which was at the end of August, did I think things start to really sink in, because at that point families got to go, they can't come up as often because they're taking time off from work or doing whatever, so there was more of my like alone time, and discovering what that's like, and so being around people, it's easier, it's because you feel good I feel good when I'm around a lot of people.
Do you ever feel extremely sad and almost desperate because this person you love and were virtually with for over 30 years all the time is just not there anymore?
Right.
Or are you always able to cope? And the reason that I asked that is a very personal question. And you said you were comfortable with the personal questions, is because I can relate to somebody I'm very close to who, if we're gone, I could feel kind of desperate, because there is being close to somebody in this way is such a comfort, and it's such a habit, and it's somebody that when something happens, you call or you go to talk, you talk to if you have a good relationship. And other people who are friends they fill a different, there's a void.
Right.
They fill a different need.
There's definitely. Yeah, I mean, and there are definite times of that, and especially, like I had mentioned earlier, was, I'm carried on with the business, the spa maintenance business that Pete did most of the, he did pretty much all of the actual maintenance side of it. So I've continued on with that, plus continuing to work at the Sea Ranch Association. So I'm, stepped into his life that I, only helped him out with on the weekends, and experienced what he did. And it's like that, when I was doing that, was really hard. It felt very empty. It was like I was used to, just being in the passenger seat with him while he was doing the spas. and so, there are a lot of things like that, and especially, I think in the evenings, dinner time, around after dinner, winding down. I mean, those are the times that hit you the most, because it's the time that, um, where you spend the most of your time with, where it's just the two of you, and it was the two of us.
And so what
sharing.
do you do to fill that? It can be a devastating void.
I try to, watch something on TV, or call somebody out, or text
do you
them.
call family?
Yeah, call family or friends.
Will you discuss what you're going through, or you just chat?
Just chat, or I might, depending on who it is and how I'm feeling. It just varies.
Okay.
But so there's definitely a lot of those times where you're feeling that way, and even initially, it's like when Pete and I were together, he would do most of the driving, or he would do all the driving pretty much, and I'd be in the passenger seat. So,
Did you travel much?
We traveled a lot. Before we were, had our shop and stuff. We traveled around the world, a bit, not extensively, but we've made a lot of trips. We've been to Greece and to Australia.
Oh, that's quite a lot.
So we've been to a lot of places together, but driving around here, so after it had passed, and I'd go to the post office and reading the mail, as I'm going back to the truck, right? I get in the passenger seat.
Oh, really?
It's like
Whoa.
like, oh.
And then what?
It's like, okay, that's not going to work.
Do you cry when you realize what
No, I kind of laughed.
Have you been crying much at all in the last 3 months?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, not a lot. I mean, a lot of it's, I don't know. A lot of it feels like it manifests and it's internal. It's not like, big weeping scene thing.
That's not your thing.
And
some people do.
Yeah, some people do. I mean, it's just more like a heartache kind of thing,
Yeah.
And but anyway, going back to sitting in the passenger seat, it's like, okay, that's when I go, okay, Pete, you think that's funny, I mean,
talk to him that way.
That's kind of a funny thing, and
How did you two get involved in tropical fish? You owned what is your business?
Aquascape. Well, Pete had bought me for one of my birthdays. He bought me a fish tank for my birthday
years ago,
and so I set it up, and I decorated, bought all the stuff that goes inside of it, and a neighbor had come over one day and had seen the tank, and who also had a fish tank, and said, "Wow, that looks really beautiful. You've landscaped the inside of that tank beautifully."
Yeah.
And so it was like, I thought, oh, would you do ours for us? And so I did theirs, and they liked it, and then so it was kind of like it just kind of happened that way.
Something that you
enjoyed
and
it was a hobby.
And people appreciated. Yeah. Tropical fish are great.
Yeah, and so
But you still enjoy maintaining tanks?
I only have a couple that I do now.
Yeah. Have you ever gotten into saltwater fish?
Just briefly. It's a lot of work, and especially up here. Unless you have a generator up here, I wouldn't even go there, because you
lose them.
Yeah,
if the heat goes down.
Really expensive.
The heat goes down. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes, maybe 5 more minutes. A couple of subjects we can conclude with. Teo Ariola is my guest. Before we conclude, maybe a few more minutes, two topics. We went off mic for a minute, and I said to you, Teo Ariola, I wondered if you had any. You're only 3 months into your loss, as we speak today on October 12th, 2016. Anything that you could impart to other people that might be a little bit profound or thoughtful about if they're going through loss or might go through loss? Or you're certainly not very long into it, but you're coping very well so far, it seems to me, given the profound nature of the relationship.
Yes. I mean, I think that I think people, when they, well, talking about me, when you have to remember, you have to have your friends close by you. Your family, friends, and your community is the biggest help that they can be. I think the worst thing anybody can do is to allow themselves to be alone and let the mind work the way it does automatically, trying to find blame, trying to find reason, and trying to make sense of something that you just need to accept it. And so I think having your support group is very, very important. And so that's probably one reason why I haven't been to an actual support group, because the community itself and my friends and family have been my basic support group, and some people may not have that. But I would say that having a support group is very important, because they remind you of what you might forget. It's like, yes, I've been together with Pete for 32 years, and, I sad. I feel like, okay, it could have been another, I feel cheated. It could have been another 20 years.
He was how old?
60.
And you're how old?
I'm 56.
Okay, go ahead.
So, it could have been another 10, 20, who knows, 30 years. You feel a little cheated. And I'm, shared that with a close friend, and it's like, yeah, you can be sad, but you also should be really, really happy, and you feel that you were fortunate that you had such a good, close relationship with your loved ones, with your mate. And so, I think, when you start thinking that way too, about being more positive, and what a wonderful life, lucky life that I've had, and that many probably may not ever experience, is comforting as well too. But it's really having that support group around you that can help you through it.
You met Pete how many years ago, Teo?
Well, it was 32. We were together 32. We met 7 years before that.
39 years.
So 39 years.
And you were a couple for 32.
32. Yeah.
And was there ever a time, and that would be in the 70s, and you said earlier that you met on Polk Street at the, what's the bar?
In Touch.
I remember that place.
Yeah.
Was there ever, if you met at the In Touch and you were living in that area or somewhere near, I would assume perhaps that you never had to be in the closet. Your relationship was always a gay relationship that you were could be proud of.
Yeah, it was always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're never hiding out or pretending.
No, not at all.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah.
It's great. I recently, have you seen the Harvey Milk movie?
No, I haven't.
It's quite a movie showing the revolution, really, in San Francisco, and his role in it as a politician running for office over and over as supervisor. It's not at all just about his being assassinated.
Right.
It's about the rise of the gay movement in San Francisco in the 70s, essentially, and his role in it. It's a powerful movie and extremely well done.
I'll have to see that.
And Kenny hadn't seen it either, Kenny
really?
Jowers, and I asked him that. Yeah, I watched it a month or two ago, Very moving and very educational from my point of view. And as we conclude, do you have any ideas that are coming up and inside of you about future theater productions, or what are your feelings about that right now, Teo Ariola?
Well, I've had a couple of thoughts. And they were just thoughts, and I could very well go into a totally different direction. But I had a thought of I was watching or on TV at night. I had the TV on, even though I wasn't really listening to the sound. I had music on. I was listening to my Jobim music, and Sweeney Todd was on with
Angela Lansbury.
No, not the original, but what's his name? God, I can't think of his name.
I don't know.
It was the remake, and I thought, wow, that would be kind of a cool show to do, another dark one, but
and that's
the musical.
That's I can't think of the writer. Andrew Lloyd Webber, isn't it?
Sondheim did the music, I believe.
Oh, Sondheim, not Andrew Lloyd Webber.
It was Sondheim.
Sweeney Todd. Okay.
Yeah, it was Sweeney Todd, and God, the guy that played the pirate,
Yeah.
Johnny Depp.
Okay.
He did he played in the remake. In the remake. And so I don't know. And because you all up here you have to think of casting, age appropriateness of who you have available.
Well, you seem to be able to pull it off.
Yeah, yeah. And I also thought I'm also toying around with the idea of bringing back Ain't Misbehavin'.
Now, Teo, you've sometimes have said, "Well, this is my last play," and one of the shows that we did about La Cage aux Folles, you indicated that. Then you sort of backed away from that absolute, and you said, "Well, major production and so forth." Yeah. And so you're anything's possible.
Yeah. That, like I said, life has changed as I once knew it. So, had Pete still been here now, I would probably still be in the same position that no, I don't want to do another big musical.
Why would that be?
Because it would take away too much time away from our time together.
Your and Pete's time together was paramount.
Yes, I mean we were together in the theater. I was very fortunate, but it was shared. It was shared with everybody, which we loved sharing, and Pete loved being there and doing it. But if we weren't doing that, we could be doing something just the two of us, and that's the way.
Even locally, not necessarily traveling.
Right, not necessarily traveling.
Yeah,
just
well, that's interesting because I would have thought the other way, that because you two worked so well together, and what you were creating something so dynamic and so well received that you'd want to do that with him as another project.
Right, but we cherished every moment, and after that last production, as we were into it, it was like I really wanted we really wanted to have more of us time, and because there was never enough,
And that was so clear.
Yeah.
Wow. And so now you might take on a big project. You don't know.
Who knows?
So,
I mean, it's so new, and